You knew it was going to look like this. There was kind of a preview, 3 years ago, then we saw one production model, then another production model.
That's all lovely, but that's not the real question. What makes an X5 an X5? Because it's not a concept car, it's not a low-volume experiment, it's one of BMW's most important vehicles. So when BMW changes the design, the interior, the software, and offers it in 5 different propulsion systems, including hydrogen, the question becomes simple. How much can BMW change before the X5 stops feeling like an X5?
So before you and I get too far down the rabbit hole of the G65 X5, an important question. Why is this important? Answer starts with a bit of history. If you go back to like the mid-90s, it was the Mercedes ML that came out first. And to my estimation, that was just kind of a fancy baby buggy. It was the X5 that came out second of the trio that said we can do a sport utility vehicle and still keep our like Germanic driving DNA and sort of off-road. But then the Porsche came out after that and kind of ran circles around them dynamically. But here's the reality of the situation. It's the X5 that runs circles around the Cayenne in terms of sales, at least in the US, 3x every year what the Cayenne does. And even globally, the X5 is the second best-selling BMW makes, only second to the X3. So knowing that, back to South Carolina. I think the headline here, the DRLs. This is a huge departure from the iX3 we've already seen. And this ain't a BMW thing. We've seen this first, believe it or not, way back in the day, almost 10 years ago with the Escalade, where lights became jewelry for some reason. And here, man, they're kind of way out there. You can't confuse this with anything else because the lights literally tell you what car it is. Then we look at the overall width. This is where, I'm gonna say something controversial here. This is far more attractive than the iX3 in person. And there's a couple of reasons for that. The width of the vehicle, this is just a bigger car. It's a mid-size crossover. But then there's haunches. There's like some sexiness to it. I know you're looking at me like I'm nuts right now. However, look at the fender, and then look at the rear quarter. It's almost like a Group B rally car from back in the day because they stick out a bit more. It's not just this curvature that goes around the wheel. Then, of course, there's that schnoz. And I hate to be the one to say I told you so, but back when the M4 came out, G82, you looked at it and you said, that is ugly, bucktooth, beaver nose, whatever it was. And I told you that that car would not only become attractive, it would stand out in like a parking lot. This is perhaps in the opposite direction. Perhaps they listen to the commenters a bit more because it's like a wee bit grille. It doesn't have the same historical reference to the BMW 328 of yore. When I say 328, I don't mean like the Bob Lutz era 3 Series Freude am Fahren. I mean 328 like pre-war. That's where we're kind of losing some of the, I guess the Freude am Fahren. We need more of this. Perhaps we need more bucktooth, even though you think I'm nuts. And then coming around the side, this is where we get a bit slab-sided into the center. And remember, BMW invented slab-sided back in the day with 2002 7 Series. I have a particular friend of mine in Saudi Arabia, loves that car. He and I disagree about this, but you have the kind of same slab-sided here. And then if you look at the front, it's slab-sided in the front of the car. I've never quite seen this, where it's almost like a right angle here. Going more towards the arse end, this is where, dare I say, there's some sexiness in a baby buggy. Remember we talked about the fenders, how there's the proportions, they widen out the car. The rear quarters a bit more because look The deep pillar's like all the way over here. The fender comes all the way out here. There really isn't anything like this right now. The closest thing is a Cayenne, and the Cayenne, it's like half that distance in proportions. The Arsene sort of picks up that same design theme we talked about in the front, but it's not, there's no nice way to put this, as slack-jawed as the front. There is some curvature, but then they do this thing where they create a valley for the roundel. I'd like to point out, wore my roundel cufflinks today in celebration of the new X5. This, like that DRL we discussed in the front, the jury's still out in my brain whether I like this whole valley thing or not. Then we move on to, last time we saw this, Lincoln Continental, the last Lincoln Continental, these oddball door handles that stick out. I haven't spent a lot of time talking with the design folks, and I could believe there may be an argument that these are here to help with moving air around the vehicle when it comes to the EV model. I think they kind of get in the way of the design. Like, this is literally the door handle. It's an electronic button almost. So kind of behind the scenes, we're moving between shots here, but I had to point this out. We talked about like what is an X5 and like the proportions and the strength. This is the first one that looked cool, 4.6 V8 original design, but this is where it introduced the proportions of those fenders. Inside, there's less of a surprise than the outside, in that this kind of picks up the design theme that was set by the Neue Klasse and then kind of made a thing with the iX3, i3, and now even the 7. They've grafted this theme onto the older design of the 7 series. And here, I don't know, man. I think we're moving away from what BMW should be BMW. Because to me, a BMW, again, Freude am Fahren, I want to see things for a driver's car. But then again, I am highly impractical. I have the mentality of a 3-year-old, and I'm not the kind of person that would buy a car like this. So I can see the kids today want multiple screens. In this case, 1, 2, and then 3, like way out there. It almost is like a floating, a head-up display. Now, one thing about this model here that really stands out, this is a fancy one. This is like, it's got all the packages on it, but something that I asked the product manager on the car, Jay, great guy, by the way, is the suede, which is actually, it's faux suede, it's Alcantara brand, is that an option? Like, do I have to pay like $85,000 extra to get the suede on the doors above the dash and the dashboard? Turns out that's fitted as standard on all of them. And it kind of drives home the point of what BMW does like over the Porsches of the world. Like Porsche, they would charge you $85,000 just for the suede. Where BMW, yeah, you do get your like $3,500 options, but they don't nickel and dime you to death like the Porsches of the world. Okay, so let's put aside the design because I never like to tell you guys what you can see, and let's focus on a much more important theme, a bigger headline. Everything here it's flash, and that it doesn't go with an X5, at least in my brain, because I think X5, I think soccer mom, I think a real utility vehicle putting children and dogs in the back of this thing. So why would you have flash? Apparently, again, I am wrong because I am not the target market for a vehicle like this. Remember when the current gen 7 series came out? Everything in that got super fancy. I don't mean like the leather and the suede headliner. I mean all of the buttons turned into crystal. And now that's kind of cascaded down to the X5, and it's more stylized than in the X5. And thank baby Jesus, they didn't do the stupid thing that Mercedes does where none of it moves. Here it still moves, so you get some tactile input. Then, you ready for the bad news? Remember the unified controller that we tortured BMW about, like way back in the day, 2002, because they were going in the wrong direction. But like Microsoft and Apple and all the other tech companies, they stuck with it, they iterated, and by like version 78, it became the gold standard in UX design. Look, where it's not here. This is the Prindle. There is no unified controller because it's all on the screen. And my feedback here, where your finger goes, that's where your eye goes. Now, I get it. You're probably gonna beat me up in the comments and say, well, voice control. I don't think we're there yet. Don't believe me, rent a car like this, like maybe not this X5 because it's not out yet. Rent the previous generation 7 series, try the voice controller, and you will see it's not ready for prime time yet.
Now, of course, I can complain about pedantic details that make this and other cars far too complex, like having to go through the screen to adjust the airflow through the vents. Which brings us to something that's rather confusing. The important part of all this tech is not readily apparent. It's not the more screens. Rather, it's a wholesale change towards centralized compute. I know that is a buzz term in bullshit bingo, but here BMW is doing something different because they're not doing it completely in-house. You may not be aware of this. We have a podcast where I talk to the key people shaping the car and tech worlds. And I spoke to one of the guys shaping automotive at one of the largest AI players in the world, Qualcomm. So rather than me explain how this thing is working, I'll let him do it for you.
Of course, we're working with the OEM on that. But GM is taking definitely for the Cruise example, right? They're taking a lead role. As we look at the BMW partnership we have, we're in this kind of jointly. So yes, we're going together because we're both building the stack together. And then as we take that stack and now bring it to other OEMs, yes, we're going to have to start taking a more proactive role in doing that.
So you know when governments argue about energy policies and propulsion systems? Let me demonstrate what that looks like to you in the real world. Plug-in hybrid, fully electric, hydrogen asterisk coming soon, cheap seats, 6-cylinder, mild hybrid, and then, for folks like you and I, a diesel mild hybrid.
What I just showed you is a very graphic demonstration of a multinational car manufacturer buying insurance. Why do I say that? No matter what the media tells you, there isn't one answer to the future. This example shows 5 answers to the future. There's the cheap seats, the B58 inline 6, and there's 2 important things going on here. Number 1, yes, it's the cheapest. It's going to start just under $70,000 US. But second, BMW is investing engineering R&D into internal combustion engines. Now granted, they're also grafting on a 48-volt mild hybrid system here, but they're doing more investing into the gas engine than other car manufacturers, so kudos to BMW on this. Now, of course, you will not be surprised to learn there will be a fully electric iX5, and there's 2 fascinating things going on here. Number 1, the move to 800-volt architecture. Why is that important? Yes, faster charging, but this finally catching up to like Porsche and Hyundai in terms of charging speeds. Yeah, there's going to be a NACS port and 435 miles of range. But the second thing that's fascinating here is how they construct the battery. Rather it being like cell packs, they're doing like tall, thin cylinders, and that's a focus on, yes, energy density, but really it's about better control over the temperature of the battery. Which brings us to the fine art of reading between the lines. What about the V8? Well, the good news is BMW has indeed confirmed that a V8 will take up residence in a G65 X5. That is all they have said. So if I'm reading between the lines, I'm thinking with this many flavors they're starting with, the only V8 we're going to get is going to be a coming X5M.
We're starting to see a theme emerge here, and that would be fancy. Yeah, we kind of already talked about it, but you can't have fancy without party tricks. And the first party trick I already showed you, that was the daytime running lamps. However, I sandbagged you. And to show you how I sandbagged you, I have to introduce you to the second party trick. And this, it's BMW, right? What other brands does BMW own? And that would be Rolls-Royce. As you can see, this technology has cascaded down to the X5, not just the 7 Series. I know this looks ridiculous and a waste, but when you get used to it, it is magnificent. Then we go to the first party trick. Close the door here, and you look, and you'll see the daytime running light looks like the iX3 now, so it's not as polarizing. Then we go back to the third party trick. And you may disagree with me, but I would say very large wheels on this, the basic vehicle, It kind of transforms the car, and that is the party trick. It changes the proportions. It picks up from the fender and the quarter panel we talked about, where it just fills everything out. So we arrive at my least favorite part of these episodes, practicality. It's a baby buggy, so you gotta put people and dogs back here. I'm 6 foot. This is kind of the mid-sized vehicle, even though it is now longer. The wheelbase, the length, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, I'd say it works. I wouldn't put your mother-in-law back here. Well, maybe actually, if you don't like her, I would put her back here. I think the best way to sum up what we're seeing here, basically the stuff that's subjective. Remember the Lexus LC500? When that car was first shown, it was like a spaceship. It was a concept car that actually made it out of an auto show and onto the road. This, if you squint really hard, it's kind of the same thing. Now that you see in the inside, it is a concept car that has left an auto show. The difference is, at least to my eye, the Lexus was achingly beautiful no matter who you were. Here, this, more open to interpretation. So a little bit behind the scenes. This was a huge event, and not the usual, hey man, come see our new car. This was more, we've been manufacturing this and other BMWs in South Carolina for 30 years now. So much so, they invited the governor, as well as one of the senators, who told us the story of how he put 200,000 miles on his personal X5. Now, why do I share this with you? There were a ton of people from BMW at this event, and my goal was to find one of them that could explain to me what were they willing to change and what had to absolutely stay the same for this to continue to be an X5. I could not find someone that could or would answer that question. So I'm going to answer it myself. My guess, the design, the most polarizing part, that's where they pushed beyond the boundaries in an attempt to gain new markets and new people. Will that polarize like mature markets like Western Europe and the US away from an X5? That is yet to be determined. Then there's the part they couldn't change. And this is why they have 5 different propulsion systems. Again, some of them for new markets, some of them for governments, but 2 of them, the engineering we know and love from BMW that signals to the BMW faithful, this is still an X5. That's my read on it. And I think you and I are going to have to pose this same question on every new BMW, probably for the next 5-10 years, that does this whole like Neue Klasse thing, with the exception of the Alpinas. And I believe that's why Alpina has been like separated out, because that, I think they're going to revert back to what BMW was like in the 90s. But I am just one man. This is the point of the episode. I turn around to you guys to opine in the comments below, or via our social media, MotoMan TV on Word, MotoMan TV on Word, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Until I see you in the next episode, bis später.